Hey everybody, Engine Doc back with you again. Got another engine to look at. Got a little Fairbanks Morse Eclipse 1A. This is the little one. 1 horsepower. The 2 flywheel version. If you guys do a little research on these, you'll find that there's a couple of different flavors of these. 2 or 3 different flavors of these. A lot of them only have 1 flywheel on them. They're pumping engine. This gear right here ran a pump jack, pump water. So that was their basic job, but they performed other jobs around the farm too. Nice little pulley on it here to run mom's washing machine or whatever had to be done. But anyway, picked this thing up and been looking for one for a while, and I wasn't looking for one until I had a reason. I'll show you why. A few years ago, I ran across this casting kit, and this is a Eclipse 1A, probably quarter scale model. So I picked this casting kit up a few years ago, not realizing how hard these little engines are to find. The 2 flywheel version, kind of hard to find, so I started looking for them. Finally found one. Let's see, Keeley Engine Works in Perrysburg, Ohio, made these castings many years ago. Probably isn't very many casting kits floating around these days. So I picked it up, and I thought, well, it'd be interesting to a challenge to find the original full-scale engine and actually use it to help me see how the parts need to be made and machined and fit for the model. So here we go. Got both now. So anyway, been working on getting this one running. It's got a few issues. First issue I had was the tank. The tank is not built very well. I think I'm not sure if it's original. This engine was built in 1914, and just the way the tank's made, it's pretty rough, and the top was very flimsy. This cast iron piece was loose on there, would have had to been resoldered, and that's hard to do on an old tank. It's hard to get it to take new solder, so I picked up a new tank for it. And if anyone needs information on fuel tanks for these old engines, leave me a note, and I will. I've got some pretty good sources for these tanks. So anyway, I put a new tank on it, and I have had it running, but it's got some issues. It throws oil like crazy. I mean, like crazy. And I'm working on that issue. It's got a kind of low compression. I can tell that it's been worked on before. The story I got with it is it came from an estate, which so that means to me it was probably in someone's collection that kind of liked it. Some of these engines, people get rid of them because, you know, they're just not wanted, or they're given problems or something like that. But I can tell this engine's had some some repairs. Right here, this has been built back up where it's been worn. Same area down here. There's some areas that have been built up. This piece hasn't been broken, but there's some springs missing on it. I added these springs trying to get the thing to run and latch out. I also added this contactor for the buzz coil, it comes up and actuates the buzz coil, turns the buzz coil on. So I've added those, trying to get it running. I've had it running for a short period of time, but it's hard to start and it throws oil. Turn the engine around here where you can see it a little bit better. This is an oil fill, and also this is the crankcase breather. I don't have any documentation on this engine, so I'm just going by what I see here and trying to figure out how they were trying to make it work. This little orange plug here is what I'm assuming is the overflow. I can pull that plug out, and that's a threaded hole, and it's a weird thread. Somebody's re-tapped it or something, I don't know. So I just stuck a plug in there for now to keep the oil in. This plug down here is the oil drain, and when the oiler is dripping, the excess oil goes down into the crankcase too. So I assume, like other engines, you periodically open this and drain off the excess oil. Well, I filled it up till the oil was just actually about a ½ inch below this hole. I didn't want it completely full, but I did want plenty of oil in there so that the rod is dipping into oil. And I've had it running a short time, and oil just blows out of here, and it just went everywhere. It soaked me, soaked the shop, and it was just pretty ugly there for a minute. So I'll show you what I've done here. It's all an experiment. I haven't tested anything yet, but here's what I've done. I'll lay these parts out over here. Here's a fitting I found. I'm going to put it in here. It's going to go in here like this. Screw in there. Then here's a check ball that just fits nicely in there. Then I made a little pipe here to go on top of that. And inside the pipe I've got a screen to keep the ball from blowing up in the pipe, and also I've got some metal shavings in there. Actually long stringy aluminum metal swarf that I packed down in there, because I've seen other crankcase breathers made similar to this with that type of material, and the oil collects in it and is able to run back down into the crankcase. And the idea here is to allow the air to come out, but not allow air to go in. So when the piston goes up, there's negative pressure in the crankcase, and that actually helps to pull oil back in from the bearing surfaces and all the other leak points. But when there's positive pressure, it vents here pretty easy. So it actually keeps a little bit of negative pressure in the crankcase, which keeps it from throwing so much oil. Now, if I can keep it from throwing oil out of this little pipe, that'll work. So I don't know if this will work yet. I'm trying it. I'll probably bring you along for the ride here and let you watch, and see if this system works. And if it does, I'll refine it a little bit to make it look a little more period specific, because again, I don't have any original documentation, and I don't know what this piece looked like originally. So I know there was something there, had to be. Most of these old engines had some form of crankcase ventilation control. As early as they were, they knew that they had to do that, and they had some kind of system on them. I rotated the engine back around again. The guy that owned it before has arrows on here, lots of arrows. There's one there, one there. So apparently you do not want to turn this backwards, and I can see why. This flyweight down in here probably could contact that latch out arm and possibly break it. So I understand why that he didn't want to turn this engine backwards. So speaking of cranking it, it does have light compression. It feels like it's okay. Of course, I haven't. You'd have to split the crankcase, turn it upside down, pull the piston out of it. There's no head per se, and take a look at the bore. And I may end up doing that, but I just took a mirror and peeked in a hole here, and it looks like he's been in there tightening up the rod, and there's new bolts in the rod. So, you know, maybe he's put new rings in it. I don't know yet. I'm just going to mess with it and try to get it running first before I do a whole lot to it. Which brings me to the next problem I've had, is cranking it. And of course, you know, I can crank it by hand, but when the engine's not running and you're trying to figure out what it's going to take to get it going, cranking it by hand is kind of a pain. So I looked in the drawer, I found a crank, but the crank works, but it doesn't. Cranks are dangerous. It's easy for them to fly off and come up and hit you, and I have a huge amount of respect for a crank, so I don't really want to use it. So I come up with this deal. And I'll show you what's going on here. Let me get it apart here. Basically, I found a piece of pipe that would slip over the end of the crankshaft here, and let me rotate this around so you can see it. This notch will engage the gib key, and then when the engine starts, it'll roll the crank back off, and hopefully it doesn't get stuck on there and go flying. So that allows that to happen. I just took a saw and cut that into that shape, and I came back over to the lathe, made this little piece, and it'll fit in here like this, and I'm going to weld this up. Get it standing up here where you can see it, and I'm just going to weld that up around there. Then I can put this in a drill motor. I can stick that on here, and I usually make, if the engine's small enough the drill motor will turn it, I will make an adapter like this for it, and it sure saves a whole lot of cranking. So that's the point I'm at now. I'm going to get this welded up, and then I'm going to get it wired up again, and we'll see if we can get it running, and see if it still throws oil. I've got mixtures to adjust. Being low on compression, it's a little hard to start. I did have a fouled plug, so I went and got a new plug for it. I just think it needs a little TLC and some understanding, and I think it'll be a running engine. And once I get it running and dependable, then you know, it'll be something fun to play with, I think. And then we can get on with the casting kit here. So kind of excited to have an engine, and I can also have the model of it. So anyway, I'm going to get this welded up and get it where I can crank it with the drill motor. Maybe that'll help us a little bit in getting the thing started. Alright, well, got things set up here. I just decided to TIG weld it. I got a nice fit. Probably really won't need any rod. Just going to go around there and fuse that together. See if we can make it work here. That's where I need one of those fancy rotating devices to move your work for you. There we go. Try that. Get you up here where you can see it maybe. ready. Maybe it'll work. Okay, got you set up over here a little farther, a little differently here. The lighting's better. I got light coming in from the door behind you there, and better light overhead. Anyway, here it is. See if I can get this this thing to work here. And this may shake the camera, I don't know, but let's see if it'll crank this thing. Put on low gear here. There we go. Yeah, I think that'll work. I've actually cranked it for a little while here. Recharging the battery on the drill, getting it ready. I'll show you how I wire up the ignition. It's just going to be a temporary setup. I've been cranking it for a little while and I haven't had any oil come out anywhere, so we'll have to see how it acts when it runs. Anyway, I use a Model T buzz coil. They're just you know, standard run-of-the-mill Model T, and what I do on these is I will actually solder some fawn stock clips on here so I can put wires on here. But you've got your positive battery here, your spark plug connects here, and then the negative connects here. And I'll show you how all that goes together here. I'm going to strip this wire off here first. Get that connection off of there. Yeah, I may not. I may just make some new wires for this thing. I think I'll clip that on the battery. Anyway, here's the battery. I use these little fence charger batteries or game camera batteries you can buy at Tractor Supply. They're 6-volt, lead acid. I run all these engines with them. They will run this engine for a month. They do a real good job, provide a lot of power, and last a long time. They're fairly cheap to buy. So that's what I use for batteries. Let's do a little wiring here. I'm just going to use clip leads. I'm going to try to keep them out of gears. Clip that one onto the spark plug. It goes onto the spark plug terminal here, which is this one. And this one with the spade lug, I'm going to put it on the negative of the battery. And that goes directly to the ground on the engine. And the positive will go from the battery. I don't have the battery in the shot here. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. Go from the battery positive to the positive on the coil. And then the negative on the coil will come over. And when the points close, it buzzes the coil. So I'm going to put that on there. So now, when you rotate this around, you'll hear the coil right there. So at that point, everything will run. This old table is a little noisy. May get you off the table and get you on the floor there on a tripod, and so it's not so shaky for the camera. We'll give this a go. Got you on the floor on a tripod. Running the DJI Osmo Action here, and I'm running it with my phone, so you'll see me reach down here and mess around with the phone there too. So kind of an amateur at all this, but what the heck. Alright, I'm going to choke it up here by hand. I'm going to get it started cranking. We got fire, we got that coil, that spark, turn the oiler on. Although as much oil as this was throwing the last time I tried to start it, I won't need that. Let's see what happens here. Looks like I get my battery. Doesn't run without a battery. Get it off the charger. it on here. There you go. That ought to help. It's trying. Okay, I don't know if you saw that or not, but the wadding that was in this pipe blew out. Here's the check bowl. It blew out. So, and it also started blowing oil all over the side of the engine here. So that's an epic fail. I'm going to have to work on that a little bit. Must have some terrific blow-by. I'm going to have to pin that ball in there. Alright, let's go back to the drawing board here and see what other changes I can make here. I will say that the one improvement I have made so far is the starting system. That was no issue. Spun it right up, took right off, so you know, kind of did something right there. My only comment right now is when you're working with these old engines, you certainly do keep your area well lubricated. I've got oil all over the table here now, and yesterday when I first tried this, I went home with oil all over my shirt. My wife says, "What happened to you after that?" I said, "Oh, the usual, you know, just playing in the oil." So yeah, we'll take this part here, see what's happening. I think the screen's still in there. Yeah, it's still in there. It sure puked that ball quick though, didn't it? Well, let me rethink this. I'll come back, bring you back and see what else we can do here. Okay, so here's what I come up with. Here's our fitting, here's the check ball. I come up with this little baffle with some holes in it here to set on top of there. I couldn't put a washer in there with a hole in the center because the ball would come up and close the hole. So I had to have this type of deal here sitting in here. So that'll set on there. This will screw down over. Matter of fact, this fits down in here pretty well. And like so. And the ball will come up and hit that. I don't know how bad that ball will hit, will beat that thing up, but I guess we'll find out. I'm just going to stick it together like this. And when I completely tighten it up, I can still hear the ball moving in there. So let me put that on. We'll try it. Putting wadding in it this time. I'm just going to see what it does here without any of that wadding in there. See how much oil wants to come out of here. And we'll go from there. I hear it working, feel it working. Let's hook it up here. Make sure I got spark. Yep, I actually felt it hit. Alright, let's see what happens here now. actually got a little bounce out of it that time. The compression may be coming up on it. Getting a little oil out of it. A little splash here. So I am getting some oil in there, but boy, it's not bad. I've got a drip coming out of this bearing, which that's fine. I don't mind a drip here and there. I know it's getting oil. Didn't have the cylinder oiler on that time. Well, that appears to be working. Now, if I could capture that oil now and not let it blow out, I don't know if I can put some of that wadding back in there and let it catch in there and run back in. I don't know yet, but at least we're making a little progress. That's feeling a little better. That was not a bad run, not throwing oil. What I did that time, I took a piece of Scotch-Brite, old wore out Scotch-Brite, and stuck down in there. Let's see how much oil's on that. There's a little bit down at the bottom, but boy, there's not much there. And man, I think that's it. I'll probably cut that off and may leave that in there. It's throwing a little bit of oil around the bearings, and that's fine. I know it's getting oil that way, so I'm satisfied with that. It's just not throwing it everywhere and drowning itself and myself. So hey, I think we're getting somewhere. Okay, getting the engine finalized here. The final verdict on this breather, the media in there is coarse steel wool, stainless steel wool, very coarse, so the oil will fall back out of it. This valve seems to be working just fine. The oil level is going to remain about a third of the way up from the bottom plug, halfway maybe. Seems to be where it likes it the best. On the crank, I've gone ahead and painted up the crank here, and this adapter I showed you, I just found a handle. This is actually a handle. It says Victorio. That's actually a handle off of an old meat grinder or grain grinder, or something you'd use in the kitchen, but it works out perfect for this. I just bored a hole in it here, drilled it for a set screw, and I can put the handle on here and crank it, or if I can, take that set screw loose, pull that off there and use the drill if I have to. I do have the engine running pretty decent. I have gone ahead and built a skid for it, and I wanted to to build a kind of a unique looking skid for it, so I could have some handles on here and be able to, a couple guys be able to grab this thing and pretty easily move it around, put it up in the truck or something like that, take it to shows. And this is made out of old skids, old pallets. So I just cut up some old pallet wood, and how I finished it was just took a torch and burnt it. Blackened it with a torch. That leaves the wood grain to show pretty well. And then put some boiled linseed oil on it. Also made a coil box for it that will house the coil and battery. Again, just built up out of old pallet wood. Got to keep the old look, you know. So that's what we've got there. I don't have a hasp on it yet. I don't have a switch on it yet, and I don't have a hole drilled through it for the wiring. But I'm going to get the engine mounted up on the skid, and get the box mounted on there, and get the coil in it and get it wired up. So that's the next trick. Got it setting up here on the crane, ready to lift up. I'll lift it up here in a second. We'll get it put on there, so we'll go from there. Little engine turned out looking pretty cool, I think. I need to decide now how that's going to sit on there and how the box is going to be arranged and so forth. The original battery box mount. I think I'm going to remove this. I'll keep it, of course. That'll let the box set on this side of the engine. Over on the other side of the engine is the accessory drive. Right there, we discussed that earlier. I may want to not have that box in the way over here. I'm going to keep it over here on the side of the engine that it was intended. So I'm going to work to see if I can get this off. Yeah, these old bolts are pretty hard to get to. I tried to get a socket in there, couldn't get it in there. Got a 11/16 wrench here. It's not the only thing that's going to fit it to get it correct. Well, it took like what almost seemed like forever to get those bolts loose enough to get this bracket off. Here's a high-tech shim back behind there, and I think that's the original dirt behind that bracket. I'm going to keep that. That's valuable. You got to keep the original dirt, and to go along with the engine. Just kidding. But anyway, let's see how the box looks on it now. I'll clean that up a little bit. Yep, that's the original dirt. And I'm not going to clean this engine up much. It's going to stay looking about like this. The patina on the wheels, I can still see the machine marks on it, the original timing marks and such. And sometimes I take sandpaper and, polish these rims up before they're shiny, but I don't believe I'm going to do that on this engine. I think I'm going to leave it just like it is, and It's old, it's used, it has lots of character, and I'm going to leave it that way. I said too, leaving it in its work clothes, and so I'm going to do that, I believe, at least for now, and go from there. I kind of got some of that loose stuff off of there. And now that box is set pretty nice in there. Turn it around. Leave it set in there far enough that I can get a hold of the handle and get the lid up to get to it. I think that'll look pretty nice, but that's why I wanted to make the skid look distressed too. So just trying that concept out, see if it works. The thing I'm going to have to do is see the engine rocks. It's higher in the center here of the mount, and I think that's how that lip got broken on the other side there. Somebody drew the bolts down too tight, so I'm going to have to shim underneath here, probably with washers, and shim under there so that I don't, break this fragile casting when I bolt it down. I'm just going to use lag bolts and go with that system, and it's probably going to hold it just fine. Then I'll make, for the box, I will make, it's got to set up here like so. I want to center it between the wheels, and then I'll just make some wooden shims to go under it and fasten it down. So that should work just fine. I'll bring you back when I'm further along. I just had another thought. I believe this is what I'm going to do. This mounted like so was not letting me mount the box there, but if I move this out, if I make some standoffs for this, move this out away from the engine, that'll let the box set on there and clear everything and actually be sitting a little higher, about like that. That'll give me room under here to grab the handles, give me more room to open the box lid. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in some standoffs for this original bracket, put it back on there, and use it to mount the box with. Duh, it takes a minute for me to figure this stuff out. Standoffs is because this casting that sticks out right here doesn't allow me to use this and use my size box on there, and doesn't allow it to work like I want it to and give me the clearance to open the lid. I've got the box I've built is just a little bit bigger to house a bigger battery and full-size buzz coil. Okay guys, we got her going. Turn around here a little bit so you can see where the light's a little better. Get inside the box. There's a little breather finished up, working fine. Still getting a little bubble in here. I need a check valve in the oil. Get off this old rattly table. This metal table is noisy too, so. Okay guys, thanks for traveling along with me with this restoration project, and we'll catch up with you on the next one.